여러분 안녕하십니까?
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. Welcome to the Best Practices session of Global Korea Convention 2021. I'm Kim Min-ji, your Master of Ceremonies for this session. On the second day of the Global Korea Convention 2021, we will hear presentations on best practices by 6 different institutions. The session is also being live streamed online on the website of Global Korea Convention 2021. We provide simultaneous interpretation during this session in Korean and English. Please tune into Channel 1 for Korean and Channel 2 for English. Now we will begin the best practices session. As we did yesterday, we will be introduced to various best practices in international cooperation. I hope you're looking forward to them as I am. The first session will be presented by Director Im Hoo-nam, National Education Statistics Research Division of Korea Educational Development Institute, or KEDI, who will present on capacity building for survey analysis and utilization of educational statistics. Please give a big hand. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I am Im Hoo-nam of KEDI. I would like to begin my presentation now. Today, I will present on the global training for capacity building in collection, analysis, and utilization of educational statistics data. At KEDI, or Korea Educational Development Institute, I am a director of the National Education Statistics Research and Division. I provided advice as part of this project. Lee Gi-jun led this project, and Han Seung-lee was in charge of the practical affairs of the project. Today, I will introduce to you about the details of this project, including the objective as well as some of the achievements that we have made as part of this project, which was quite successful. First of all, I will cover the outline of the training project, and I will analyze the causes of the success in this project. Mainly, there seem to be 4 reasons, and I would like to talk about the reasons why this project was able to be carried out successfully. First of all, I will give you an outline of the project, including the details, the overview, the objective, the subject, and the results, as well as the method of the project. As I said, the name of this project was Capacity Building for Survey Analysis and Utilization of Educational Statistics through Global Training. And this project was part of SIAT by KOICA, which stands for Capacity Improvement and Advancement for Tomorrow. So the training took place for 10 days in September of 2021, participated by 22 members responsible for educational statistics in Sri Lanka, as well as 12 members from the observer countries. And the objective of our training was what you see on the slide. So we have been developing educational statistics for a long time, and so we had quite a lot of know-how in this domain, and therefore we wanted to share the know-how with the people in Sri Lanka responsible for educational statistics so that their statistics can become more accurate and reliable. That was the expectation that we had as we began this training. And also, we wanted to help them with the establishment of educational statistics and educational policy monitoring in Sri Lanka. Furthermore, we wanted to enhance the cooperation and exchanges between Korea and Sri Lanka. And at the international level, I believe that this project would contribute to the achievement of SDG 4, including producing relevant indexes and indices in relation to the Sustainable Development Goal related to education. There were 4 modules in our training program, which I will give more details on in the latter part of the presentation. Here's the subject of the training. So there were 22 members from Sri Lanka and 12 members from the observer countries. So there were a total of 34 participants in the training. 22 people from Sri Lanka were from the Ministry of Education or the Office of Education who were in charge of educational statistics in Sri Lanka. And from the observer countries, we provided online training program, and therefore we invited members from Indonesia, Cambodia, and Uzbekistan, which are countries that are actually part of our research project. And the training took place in an online format. Usually we do invite them in person to give training, but because of COVID, inevitably we had to provide the training online. So initially it was slated to be provided in 2020, but it was not able to be held in 2020, so we began the training in 2021. And so we thought long and hard about how to successfully provide online training. So the first strategy we chose was what's called flipped learning. And also we wanted to help them with problem-based learning so that we can actually identify the problems in Sri Lanka and also identify solutions together. So this is what we call the problem-based learning strategy. And because it was in an online format, we offered the training both on Zoom as well as on YouTube. So here you see the results of the training. So all 22 members participated and completed the program 100%, and they were very dynamically engaged in the discussions and presentations. Also, at the end of the training, they established an action plan, and also they were able to commit themselves to this action plan. So in that sense, the program was very successful. Also, over the course of this training, together with KOICA, we have set some performance indicators, including academic performance, satisfaction trainees, AP impact, improvement in educational statistics perception, and we actually overachieved all of these performance indicators. And as a result of our self-assessment of this training, we do think that it was quite a successful project, but there were some technical glitches that we experienced over the course of the training. So these are some of the problems that we hope to improve in our future training programs. And now I would like to go into the details of why this project has been so successful. Number one, we believe that it was successful because we designed it in a modular format. Now I would like to introduce to you about the 3-year training plan, as well as the program details for this year, and also the strategy and methodology that we have used. So we have this 3-year plan for the training. For the first year, we will have introductory course in educational statistics capacity, and in the second year, we will have an advanced course in educational statistics capacity by different domains, including childhood education, primary and secondary education, higher education, and lifelong education, so that we can provide more specialized skills and capacity in these different domains. And in the third year, together with the introductory course, we will actually provide an advanced course by different jobs so that we can foster the different skills based on different job types. And therefore, we will provide education on policy monitoring and assessment, improving statistics quality, as well as improving their working level capacity or skills to be used on the site. So this year, we had 4 modules in the training, as we said earlier. The first module was in relation to the national statistics system and policies. In this first module, we provided training on how the national statistics system and governance should be designed, how the quality should be diagnosed and managed, and also we provided them with information about how the Korean educational statistics has been designed and what the system looks like. The second module was in relation to the collection and management of the educational statistics data, which can be divided into 3 different categories, which are reporting statistics data, survey statistics data, and academic achievement data. So we provided them with training about how to actually collect and manage these different types of data. And the third module was how to actually analyze and utilize the data. So first of all, we covered the publication and distribution of statistics, and secondly, online statistics services, and thirdly, demand-based statistics services. And the last module of this training was about actually examining the educational statistics system of Sri Lanka, identify the problems, and also identifying the solutions. And they came up with an action plan. We provided them with training on how to actually establish the action plan so that the participants could identify their own problems, identify their own solutions, and develop an action plan based on these ideas. And here you see the strategy and methodology of the training. So we used flipped learning, problem-based learning, and group discussion as our three strategies. Flipped learning involves preliminary learning followed by a group discussion. And we really made sure that we provided them with lectures in videos so that they would hear an hour of online video lecture and then a 2-hour group discussion. And as for the pre-learning or preliminary learning, we did want to provide them with the video lectures in advance so that we could help with their preliminary learning, but we were not able to do that, unfortunately. However, we did make sure that we included different discussion topics in the video lectures so that they would actually be able to cover these topics in the group discussions. And the second methodology we used was problem-based learning. So we provided them with real-time online seminars so that the instructors of the online seminars were able to facilitate Q&A, and also the instructor provided them with a summary of the lectures and also provided them with additional materials and support for any follow-up work. And with that, we were able to really make sure that the online learning could take place in a more proactive manner instead of a passive manner. Over here on this slide, you see that we created 10 different videos per module. And these are screenshots of some of these videos. And these videos included the slides, the instructor, as well as the subtitles. So the videos were translated into English, and also we provided a subtitle in English. In Sri Lanka, people use English, and therefore all the subtitles and the translation is in English, but when we have a workshop with other countries like Cambodia where they don't use a lot of English, then we provided the subtitles in the local language so that it would become so that the content becomes more accessible to the people when they hear the lectures in their own local language. And when they develop an action plan in the later part of the training program, they can continue to use these videos as a reference because these videos are uploaded on the platform for them to reference anytime. And we wanted a participatory online training, and so to do this, we used the virtual studio, and also we created videos for field trips, and also we provided them with various online tools to support their learning. First of all, we used an online virtual studio. We created this studio for this training course, and there are 3 main screens. One shows the instructor, one shows the slides, and one shows the participants. And this was designed to really make it feel more real. So we would have about a 2-hour online seminar, and then they would basically provide the training in this virtual studio. And also, they had small group discussions based on what they've learned in the online seminar. So we basically had a seminar as well as a group discussion using this format. And when they are able to come over in person, we do actually have in-person field trips so that they can meet with people in Korea who are responsible for educational statistics, but we were unable to do that because this was held in an online format. So we made videos of field trips which contain interviews with the working level people in Korea who are responsible for educational statistics so that it would feel more real for the participants. Also, we provided various online tools for the participants. First of all, the participants could use Zoom to communicate with the instructor, and also we offered this to the public via the YouTube channel. And also we used Google Class to offer various online tools. We made sure that the questions of the participants were addressed, and also if they requested further materials, we uploaded any further and additional materials on Google Class so that we continued to provide communication and support for the participants. And the third reason for our success was that they were able to build an action plan. Building an action plan is the most difficult part because simply obtaining information about Korea, that is more easy, whereas they have to actually identify their problems and they have to build an action plan. That's the more difficult part. So this shows the problem tree of Sri Lanka as part of an action plan development. There are many different approaches to building an action plan. So they may identify a lot of different problems and they may build an action plan for each of these problems, but the training had a limited time and therefore we focused on some of the problems. Initially, the three different subgroups defined different problems, and these three groups came together to actually identify that the biggest problem was lack of reliability in the educational statistics data. And so they identified the causes why, and they actually predicted the effect of solving this problem, and they drew this tree in order to build a consensus about the problem and the solution. And also, they found that the capacity building of teachers in schools as well as the personnel on the site was very important. So they said that they should designate a person who's responsible for collecting data on the site, and also how to motivate them to better collect data and how to motivate the teachers to provide more reliable data. And they talked about the administrative needs, the budget, as well as the timeline to actually execute this solution. And in this process, of course, they would need a budget to execute this plan. And in Sri Lanka, they don't actually have a person designated for each school in collecting the data. So they said that they would need to designate the person in charge of each school statistics, and also they could provide various motivations, including, for example, a bonus or extra points in their performance evaluation, and as well as opportunities for training these people. And they did actually earmark a budget for this project. And in next year's training, we will be able to discuss the more detailed aspects of the execution. So the people from Sri Lanka are very eager to solve this problem, and I think that is one of the major achievements that we feel very proud of. And next, we designed training so that it's collaborative and cooperative. So we built a system of cooperation with related specialized institutions. In Korea, we have an MOU with Statistics Korea, and also we were able to hear seminars and lectures from the members of Statistics Korea. And also UIS is another institution that we worked with. For example, when we cooperate with the developing countries in Asia for the future, I think that UIS will be able to work with us. So for this year, we were not able to work with the UIS, but in the future, we do plan to work with the UIS. And for this year, we did work with KOICA and Statistics Korea. And this training is actually part of a larger research project, which is called Developing Country Educational Indicator Development Cooperation, which began in 2016. And so from 2017 to 2019, we did have the initial phase of this project with Mongolia, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka, during which we actually visited these countries to understand what's happening on the site. And then we began the second phase with 3 countries, including Indonesia, Uzbekistan, and Cambodia in 2020. And we understand how these countries are collecting the educational statistics. And during the first phase, Sri Lanka was the subject of the research, and now Sri Lanka became the participating country of our training. So this shows how we're actually linking research project with the training project, and that is one of the other reasons why this project has been so successful. And also we have a linkage together with policy research, in that we designated Sri Lanka as the beneficiary of this training, and also we were able to use the results or the learnings from our research to design our training. And based on our experience of educational statistics in Korea, we were able to help the participating countries to identify their own indexes as well as their own problems. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a great presentation. Now we will start the discussion session, and I would like to introduce our three discussants. First of all, the moderator of the discussion is Seo Ye-won, Head of International Cooperation Office at KEDI, and we have Professor Park Hwan-bo of Chungnam University, and we have Secretary Ha Myung-ok of the Ministry of Education. Please give a big hand. And now we will begin the discussion. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Director of KEDI, National Education Statistics Research Division, for the presentation. I did take part in this project as a member of KEDI, so I am very proud of the accomplishment that we have made through this training, and I think that this is a very meaningful session for us to share what we have done as part of this project. Also, I'm honored to have with us Secretary Ha Myung-ok of Ministry of Education. Could you please start your discussion, please? Yes, I am Secretary Ha Myung-ok of the International Cooperation Division at the Ministry of Education. I am very happy to be invited here to discuss our learnings and accomplishments from ODA over the past 1 year. And today, it made me look back on how I approach educational statistics for the first time. When I first entered the ministry in 1995, one of the most difficult things for me to work on was educational statistics. What we did at the time was we would get a B4 paper and write the number of students and write all of these numbers. But actually, thinking back, it was quite systematic because even if they are in the same year at school, they could actually be different ages, and we had statistics of the students based on the age, based on the year, based on the school. So it was a very sophisticated and also difficult process. Also, what we would do is we would go to the Office of Education in each city, and we would actually check if we got the statistics right. And I think that is why we were able to get the numbers correct and why we were able to actually get reliable statistics. Currently, everything is on the computer, on the database. Back then, it was all paper and pen. But anyhow, the Ministry of Education was able to actually develop the system to actually promote the reliability and accuracy of the educational statistics. And also later on, I was responsible for leveraging the statistics for policy development. So you have the number of students per class, per year, per school. You have the number of the faculty at school, and also you get statistics about the budget per school, how to actually distribute the budget in different schools. So the basic for policy making was all of these statistical data. And in educational administration, all the way to policy making, you need statistics. And I'm sure that our partner countries will also need to recognize the importance of educational statistics in order to successfully develop their policies. And in that sense, I'm sure that sharing our know-how and experience with the partner countries will be very helpful for them. And educational statistics is really at the forefront of any administration and policymaking in relation to education. And so this was a very meaningful opportunity for us to remind ourselves of the importance of educational statistics again. And I know that this training was initially scheduled for last year, but it took place this year because of COVID. I know that you have had a lot of difficulties in going through with this training. It's always difficult when your plan doesn't go as planned and you have to revise the plan, you have to revise your budget. So it was a difficult time for all of us. And I really want to congratulate all members of KEDI for your hard work in making this a success, and I applaud your work. And as I was hearing the presentation, what I was impressed with is that you didn't actually set hundreds of different problems as part of your action plan. You actually focused on a single problem to build an action plan. And I know that it was a difficult decision to make, but I think it was a wise decision to make because you were really able to focus on that particular problem and go deep into the problem. So that was a very bold decision, in my opinion, and I think that was one of the big reasons why you were able to make this a successful project. And whatever program you have, whatever project you have, you always assess the results at the end of the project. And I know that it was a bold decision because simply choosing to address one problem in an action plan may affect your assessment of the results. But I could really see your sincerity in this bold decision because you actually wanted to focus more on Sri Lanka's solutions and Sri Lanka's execution of the action plan. And I was personally quite impressed by that because that really shows your sincerity to help and support Sri Lanka. And I can feel that you are authentic in your mind to actually help the Sri Lankan people. And when I saw the indicators, I can see that the scores are quite high in all of these four modules. And I actually never saw an indicator for academic performance. So I think this indicator on the actual achievement of the participants was quite impressive for me. And I have a question about utilization of the action plan, as well as so the score for the satisfaction level of the trainees, as well as improvement in educational statistics perception, they had lower scores compared to the other criteria. And would that be maybe because when you're teaching about how the different perceptions and awareness impacts the policies, maybe the trainees did not really feel how these impact was applicable in real life. And I know that from next year you will have an advanced course on handling the more specific domains of the capacity. So maybe next year you will be able to also provide best practices as well as cases of failure in Korea so that the trainees would actually have a more realistic understanding of the educational statistics in real life. And also, when I saw the virtual studio, I thought that was pretty impressive as well because it almost felt like a show, like a TV show. And the participants can actually be part of that TV show, so to speak. And also, there are videos of the field trip, which makes you feel like you're actually appearing in a show. And also, you're watching the show. So I think that really made the training more immersive. And I think this really allowed you to overcome the limitations of an online format. And I know that it must have been difficult for instructors to plan their online classes. And even after COVID, maybe we could continue to utilize this online format so that we can reach a wider audience. And actually, the Ministry of Education hasn't had a lot of exchanges with Sri Lanka so far. Because compared to other ODA partner countries, I don't know why, but Sri Lanka has always been our partner country, but we haven't really had any major project or exchanges with Sri Lanka. But in 2013, Inje University actually signed a partnership with Sri Lanka, and they started to provide a 4-year course program instead of a 3-year course program, and they actually established this 4-year course school in one of the universities of Sri Lanka in 2017. And I may not be accurate, but about $2 million was invested by the Sri Lankan government for this project. And I heard that you did actually build an action plan for Sri Lanka, and they have actually earmarked a budget for that, or they have actually decided on the budget for the project. So I think this really allows you to cooperate with Sri Lanka on a sustainable basis, and I look forward to continuous projects and continuous cooperation with Sri Lanka so that we will be able to actually expand the cooperation with Sri Lanka. So starting with educational statistics, I think we may be able to expand our cooperation in whatever Sri Lanka may have the strongest need in, whether it's primary education or secondary education, higher education, or even vocational education. But I really hope that our ODA projects would actually be able to impact their policy making as well. And all the research institutions as well as the Ministry of Education should work together to actually have that great impact on the education policy making of Sri Lanka. And I really look forward to that future, and I hope that KEDI will continue to work as a strong driver for that cooperation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Secretary, for covering so many different topics so thoroughly. As you have said, educational statistics is such a broad and wide domain, so we really need to have a strategic focus. And as you said, as part of this training course, we helped them develop an action plan, and that was kind of the large theme of the training which drove the entire program. And if you think about an action plan, there are so many different approaches you can take, and there are so many different methodologies you can apply, and there are so many different scopes that you can choose to include, and also you have to think about the budget. So it's really a complex interplay of so many different elements that you have to consider. So in that respect, building an action plan can truly improve the capacity and build the capacity of the participants and the trainees. So that is why developing the action plan was one of the main reasons of why this project was so successful for us. And as you all know, online education or online learning could be less effective than offline learning. That's why people usually prefer offline in-person interactions, especially when it comes to learning. And we wanted to make online learning as effective and as efficient as possible. And so all the members of KEDI were involved in thinking about how to make it effective, and that's why we came up with this idea of a virtual studio. This was the first time that we used a virtual studio. And you know how you hear about people who are not really paying attention to the online classes, they're in the bed and they just have the classes playing, not really paying attention to it. But in our case, we had this virtual studio, and you see the face of the instructor, you see the face of the students, and you see the faces of all the participants so that they can actually feel engaged in the learning even though it was in the online format. And that's why we scored very high in our indicator of the academic achievement of the participants. And as you say, we have not had a lot of exchanges with Sri Lanka, but with this training project, we wanted to really get as many countries involved as possible, and we got applications of different countries, and Sri Lanka sent us an application with a strong commitment to improve their capacity and build their capacity, and that's why Sri Lanka was selected as the main country of this training. And our next discussant is Professor Park Hwan-bo of Chungnam University. Hello, as I've been introduced, I am Park Hwan-bo, professor at Chungnam University. First of all, I am very grateful that you invited me here as a discussant. And also, I thank you for the presentation. I think your presentation was befitting this convention, as well as the theme of this convention, which was the role of international development cooperation and Korea in the era of COVID and climate crisis. And I think your presentation really showed the direction for us, Korea, as well as international cooperation in this era. I actually have been involved in the planning and operation of various educational projects. And also, I have done research about how the different research institutes in Korea are involved in these projects. And actually, if you think about SEAT by KOICA, a lot of the projects are very difficult to execute, and a lot of the institutes just want to get it done. However, KEDI was different. I could see that KEDI was really committed to making this project successful, and especially at this time of COVID, you really did your best to make it as effective as possible, and you actually created this virtual studio for the first time. So I would like to I really would like to sincerely applaud all members of KEDI as well as everyone involved in this project. And you have different domains in educational statistics, but because you have so many different participants and trainees from different countries and different domains and different fields and different background and different experience, I know it's so difficult to decide where to focus on. Especially with KOICA SEAT project, we want educational training programs to really expand to many countries and many participants and a bigger audience. So we do want to expand more countries. And also, we do want to improve homogeneity of the participants. So this is kind of a dilemma for KOICA in executing SEAT project. And KEDI, you invited 22 people from Sri Lanka. Usually other institutes want to reduce the size of the participants, but you actually went on to involve more observer countries. So I think that is an effort that really deserves appreciation. You actually invited people not just from Sri Lanka, but also Indonesia, Cambodia, Uzbekistan. I believe that was a great accomplishment on your side. So if you think about why that was possible, it was because you actually linked this project with your research project, which means that you already have an amicable relationship with these countries. And also, you will continue to link this 3-year training program with your research project so that you can actually build a foundation for future cooperation. And I think that is what allowed you to actually expand the scope of this project. And even if you do expand the number of participants or the number of countries, you do have to really be confident about the content that you provide. Otherwise, it's going to be meaningless. As you know, KEDI is responsible for educational statistics as well as educational policy making. It's a backbone in this domain, and it's had a long experience in this domain. As Secretary Ha said, educational statistics is really the basic to all educational policy making. It's really the backbone of all the processes related to education. So your institute has a lot of content, has a rich content, and that's why you were able to actually address the needs of the different participants and the different countries, because you have sufficient expertise and you have sufficient confidence in what you have. And this project really shows your confidence because you had a modular design. Under each module, you had different specific topics, and you actually created video content for them so that they can have preliminary learning. Preliminary learning is always an important strategy in any learning. And also you have problem-based learning through online videos. In any global training programs, field trips are very important, but you're not able to have them come over in person, and you actually made up for that by creating videos of field trips so that the participants would actually feel that they are there in person. You showed them the interviews, and you actually showed everything they needed to know on the site. So I think that was really impressive. And if you look at the list of the topics, these topics could actually feel rather theoretical, but you made it feel real and immersive using various innovative tools. And also, you were able to actually accommodate to the different levels of experience and the different types of expertise that these participants have by delivering content in the right way. Because you are education experts, you are able to actually choose the optimum strategy to reach the audience. So designing the curriculum and designing the content and also aiming for the right accomplishments, all of that was quite successful in this project, and I applaud you on that. And of course, we were in the midst of COVID, and all the institutes that want to provide overseas training courses ran into a lot of challenges because global training, whether it's healthcare or agriculture or education, basically these global training programs are basically part of education. They're just on different topics. So a lot of the institutions that provide the global training want to actually invite the trainees in person to the country so that they can build networks and they can actually talk to each other in person. But during COVID, that became impossible. People could not come to Korea anymore. So we were not able to provide them with cultural experiences in Korea or the Korean wave experiences in Korea. So a lot of the institutes were really agonized about how to provide global training amidst COVID. And I think your case really presents the future direction for us in COVID. If you cannot meet in person, you should really focus on the content. You should really leverage your expertise to design the best content. And also you should really innovate how you deliver the content. And after COVID, when they can come to Korea, you can still maintain that focus on the content while also adding that element of in-person exchanges. And also, you have shown that online content could be actually used to provide field trips. And I think that's something that we can continue to utilize even after COVID. And as a specialized policy development and policy research institute, I think you have provided one of the best practices that all the institutes can look to as they design global training programs. And once again, thank you very much for your hard work. Thank you so much for your discussion today. As Professor Park said, KEDI is really the backbone of Korea's educational statistics collection and development and analysis. And you have an expertise that's been accumulated for over decades. And so you had rich content and you delivered it the right way. Through this training, you actually built up another expertise of online delivery of the content. Next year, we hope that COVID will stabilize somewhat and we will be able to actually add an additional element of in-person exchanges as well, hopefully. This year, I know that you have had a lot of difficulties in providing this training, and because this is full-day, real-time online training, I know that for the 10 days, you really had to commit yourself and you really had to make a lot of efforts over the course of the 10 days, but I know that it was worth it. Today, we had a look at the online training program, and the director who presented today, next year, once COVID stabilizes, maybe you will be able to go for a hybrid format based on your expertise in online delivery as well as the offline strategies. So I think we're all hoping that we would be able to have a more blended or hybrid form of training. So, Director, what do you think about your strategy or approach over the next 2 or 3 years? Yes. So actually, when I first received the request to give a presentation, I wasn't sure if we were good enough to present in this session, but as I was preparing for my presentation, I did become convinced that this was a practice that a lot of other institutes could benchmark. And in 1998, we first started to collect educational statistics, and over 2 decades, we have been collecting educational statistics. And KEDI became a statutory institution to actually collect and analyze data for policy making, and we do feel proud about that. And I think this presentation was an opportunity for us to look back on what we have done. And also, we were able to see that the cooperation with these countries did not happen overnight. It happened over a long period of cooperation, and we do still have problems that we have to address going forward. So, I think it's important for us to think back on where we started, how we felt when we started, so that we can actually help the developing countries that are starting this process. And that's why we initiated a research project with some of these countries, and that actually led to this training program. And we feel very happy about that because we were able to deliver an outcome, and we were able to actually develop ourselves as well at the institutional level, and we were able to also define our future direction in terms of cooperation with these countries. We are working not just with Sri Lanka, but with other countries, and some of these countries participated as an observer countries, and I think that was possible mainly because the training was held online. We wanted observer countries not just to unilaterally get information, but we wanted them to actually be engaged as well. But of course, Sri Lanka was the main country, so of course we had to focus on Sri Lanka, but we also wanted the observer countries to get as much out of this training as possible. And the observer countries, we wanted the observer countries to also transfer what they have learned, transfer the capacity that they have built to other members in that country. So I think the online format was actually an opportunity for us to expand the scope of our project and the scope of our cooperation. And also we were able to have a clearer picture of what we want to do in the future. And for the training next year, well, we're still thinking about how to proceed with this training because we have a 3-year plan, and we will continue to revise our plan and optimize our plan depending on the circumstances and the demand of the beneficiary countries. Also, we want to share our achievements with Sri Lanka with other countries so that we can actually attract interest of so many more countries. And we do have a picture of how we want to cooperate in the future. So we have the team from KEDI and also UNESCO Korea Committee, as well as the relevant division in the Ministry of Education. And also there are so many other institutes that are interested in this training. So we do want to build a cooperative system involving different institutes and agencies in order to make it more successful. So I continue to look forward to your interest and your support. Thank you so much. Thank you. You really emphasized the importance of cooperation across countries as well as within the Korean institutes. Secretary Han Myung-ho, you're from the Ministry of Education, and you're here to represent the ministry. And today's presentation was focused on the training in educational statistics. And in education development cooperation, and in the ODA, in Education Development Cooperation, there's the Ministry of Education and also there's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that are involved in the ODA. So can you maybe give me some comments about the future direction of cooperation on this front? Yes. It's actually really difficult to win a budget for an education project because education is kind of all what's happening in your mind and in your head. And so with education, it's very difficult to win a budget. But we should really work together going forward so that we will be able to get more support across the board for education-related projects. Thank you. And Professor Park, I wanted to ask for your concluding remark, but in the interest of the time, I may not be able to do that. Once again, thank you very much, Director Im of KEDI for National Educational Statistics Division. And also, I would like to thank Professor Park and Secretary Ha for joining us today. With that, we conclude the first presentation of the Best Practices session. Thank you. Thank you. Once again, please give a big round of applause. With that, we will have a short break, and from 11, we will begin the presentation of the second Best Practice. We will see you soon.